Hey guys, we are back for another episode of the On-Call Empath, and today we are going to be diving in a lot of different subjects from people pleasing, everything from learning about fight, fawn, freeze, fear. And so we're going to go into all of that today. My next guest has a very impressive background. Her name is Abby Medcalf. She is a relationship maven, psychologist, author, podcast host, Tedx speaker. I love her direct style. She knows what she's talking about. She has a non-BS like style, so she'll tell you exactly what's on her mind, which I love. She's has experience for over 30 years and recognized as an authority and a speaker of the organization such as Apple, Google, AT&T, and I can go on, but I'm going to let you take the stage here. And it's an honor having you, Abby. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you. And yeah, it always
Yes.
sounds like my mother wrote my bio.
I
'Cause
mean,
it's
yeah, it's super impressive. I'm very impressed with your background, and so that kind of leads me in. How did you kind of get into all of this work from your background? Because it seems like you have like a kind of like a different background in organizational. And so, tell me a little bit about that.
well, I'm a recovering heroin addict, and I was going to be a lawyer, and so I actually have a bachelor's in poli sci because I was so
Oh,
sure I was going to be a lawyer. But as I got into recovery, and I actually moved across the world to Israel, and I lived over there for a while, and I just found that I kept getting feedback that I was very good talking to people, and
mm,
I started to sort of go down a different path. And when I came back to the States, I got a master's in counseling psychology, and I started doing that for a while. And then I started working in businesses. So I sort of veered back and got an MBA. I wanted to
wow.
do one to many, not just one to one. And then my PhD is actually in organizational psychology. So I have this
Okay.
kind of weird background mix. And I worked with executives who had drug and alcohol problems for a long time, and doing other kind of work also, and then sort of ease back into my own world and really trying to help people in just these other ways instead of through a business, through
Yeah.
businesses. And that's, the podcast was born, and my book, and all the things. And so yeah, it's really great. I'm living my best life. Very exciting. I'm reaching a lot of people, and doing things like this just makes my day.
Yeah, and I had to look at your Instagram, and some of the posts that you have are, I mean, it really resonates with me, and I'm sure a lot of my audience members definitely check out Abby's Instagram, which I'll put it in the bio. But as far as like going through addiction and overcoming that, what was that moment where you were like, okay, I need to make a change, and then now you're helping thousands of people all over the world? I mean, that transition, did that take time, and how did you do that?
It's That's a whole podcast in and of itself.
That's a
I
different episode, right?
Yeah, it is. I can only say that it's never one thing. I know some people get, I don't know, like the hand of God comes down and they have some sort of inspiration. I went kicking and screaming into all of it. I was in a ton of rehabs. I've walked on hot coals with Anthony Robbins. I've done
Wow.
Est. I've done LifeSpring. I've done, there's not a thing I haven't tried to, and I still do things all the time to improve myself, and you're never done. It's
Yeah.
always, and that's the joy of it though, is I'm always finding out new things about myself and other people. I find people endlessly fascinating and
Yeah.
amazing and wonderful. And it's a privilege, to just be in the
Yeah.
world. And so, but shifting, I'd say, in a big way from a fear mindset to a love mindset has changed my life. And that's something I work on, on a daily basis. I'm
Yeah.
always improving. But yeah, there wasn't any one moment for sure. I would just
Right.
say to everybody, you never give up on yourself. You
Yeah.
have a goal, you're going to get there, whether that's to have a better relationship, whether that's to get a great job, whether that's to just feel at peace and feel connected. That's your goal, and you never give up on that. And
Yeah.
that's where you always, one of the things that's really important that I heard a long time ago when I learned to ride a motorcycle. I don't know if you've ever learned to ride a motorcycle, but
No.
if you learn to ride a motorcycle, the very first thing they tell you, the first thing the guy said to me goes, there's only one thing you need to know. Never Oh, wherever you look is where the bike's going to go. And that's life.
Yeah.
Where if you're looking, if you're a race car driver and you're looking at the wall, you're going to hit the wall.
Right.
You have to look in front of you all the time. Where do you want to go? What are you trying to do? That is where all of your attention and focus should be.
Yeah.
All of it. Not on the past, not on what might have happened, what I could have done better, not on regrets, not on anything else, because you will drive that race car or your motorcycle and your life into the wall or into some oncoming traffic. You have to look at where you're going.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. And I mean, a lot of people that are listening on this podcast, I mean, they've been through trauma. A lot of them are empaths, highly sensitive people. One of the things that I get from a lot of my listeners are, they get triggered, especially right now with the way the world is. It seems like there's something going on. We get provoked. A lot of people that never had PTSD are now saying it's a thing with social media. And the other factor is like people pleasing and all of that jazz. So I wanted to ask you, just starting off from the beginning, why is people pleasing seem to be a trauma response in itself?
Yeah. Oh, well, and really, when I started learning about this, it really changed the game, right? For me, it helped a lot of my clients. But so let's just talk about this in a broader sense. So most people know the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? Everybody has that, by the way. Everybody in the world has that. The difference is that for people who've had any kind of trauma, that is heightened in a different way because of the trauma changes the brain in a multitude of ways. And should we go here really quick and then go there? Is that,
however you want to do it.
Let me just do this really quick because it's so important. I promise not to get too technical, but here's the deal. So when anything happens, anything at all that is a change or it's coming at us and we're not sure, and this is for all people. So we're going to magnify this by 1,000 if you've had any kind of trauma in your past. Every single person, you have three things that every experience goes through in your brain. And that's your amygdala, something called your hypothalamus, and your hippocampus. And let me just quickly tell you what happens. So let's say my father says to me, oh, do you still have that job? You're still, did you get a regular job yet? Did you get a real job yet?
Right.
Something like that, right? Just, not even too crazy, but just a little, right? Let's just do still at that job, right? Like, and right, exactly. So what's happening is you're getting, that's quote unquote triggered, right? Yeah. And depending on what kind of history you've had with your dad, and a lot of people don't even realize they've had trauma because, anyway, that's a whole other story. But right. Depending on the history of what happened, here's what happens. So your amygdala immediately lights up. This is the part of your brain really where the fight, flight, or freeze response happens. And we'll talk about how the fawning fits in a second. So right away, you're either going to have an argument with your dad, like, why are you always talking to me like this? You're always coming after me, right? You might look at your watch and go, oh, it's time to go. Right. I see I'm supposed to be some blow drying my hamster. Or maybe you freeze, you just go, like I call it the yes dear response, where you're really being very passive and you're not really doing anything. But you also might have this people pleasing response where you might just go, oh, Dad, I have like 5 new jobs I applied for and I've done all these other things. Right. And you might even quit the job that you love. Right. Starting your own podcast because your dad doesn't like it. You know what I'm saying? You might do any of those things, but that's how those all show up from the trigger. Now, so what happens is this amygdala gets light up. It sets off one of these things. And what happens as soon as the amygdala kind of, gets lit, as soon as that happens, it immediately also ignites another part of your limbic system called your hypothalamus. And your hypothalamus is in charge of, as soon as it's like, oh, we're supposed to be running from a tiger right now, right? This is an ancient response. So immediately it sets off stress-inducing hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine and epinephrine, right? So all the stress hormones are now running through our body. And by the way, we're not running. We're just standing there. So you can imagine how agitated your system is, right? Going like, we're supposed to be running. Did you ever, by the way, let's say your boss says to you, hey, I want to see you in my office at 2:00. and it's like 8 a.m. Yeah. I love your face. You know what I'm saying though? Or maybe you're leaving the house and your partner, you see that they're kind of acting funny and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, are you okay? And they go, actually, no, but I have to talk to you after work. I have a busy day. I'll talk to you later.
Right.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Right. Yeah. We're all panicking.
I can't have that.
I'm sorry, empaths. I'm even saying this out loud. So do you know that feeling where it feels like your stomach drops out?
Mhm.
I'm talking about like,
Yes.
it's just, that is actually the blood rushing to your legs to run.
Oh my gosh. I never heard that.
That is how ancient that response is. At the same time,
crazy.
I know. At the same time, your pupils are dilating so you can
Mhm.
run in the dark because you might be running. Your breathing starts to become shallow, right? So that, you're kind of, a little panicked so that you can run faster, quicker.
Or go to
You
the
might
bathroom.
start to
Go to the bathroom.
Go to the bathroom. Well,
Yeah.
that's right. Because you're not supposed to eat if you're under fire, because the number one process in your body is digestion.
Right.
That's when you're at your weakest. So if you're supposed to be running from something, your whole brain is telling you, don't eat. No matter what else you do not eat. So it'll evacuate your system too.
Oh
That's,
my gosh.
you'll have, right? People get diarrhea, they throw up.
Right.
And you're certainly not hungry in that moment.
No.
You might stress eat later, but you're not hungry in that moment. Because again, you've got that icky feeling, right? You might start to sweat, and some people sweat when they get nervous, right? That is so that, again, to cool your body while you run, or so that if a predator or another person tries to grab you in a fight, they might slide off.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is a many million-year-old response as you stand there in your suit with your cup of coffee, right? Doing nothing. So here's your hypothalamus sending all these stress hormones into your system because it'll help you run faster. It'll keep you really, very hypervigilant. You'll notice if there's a place to escape. You'll notice all kinds of things, right? You'll be able, all your senses are heightened. So all that's going on again as you stand there. And then, and what gets really scary is the another part of your brain called your hippocampus, which controls memory, is also signaled, okay, by these stress hormones. The problem is that these stress hormones shrink and shrivel, literally, physically, your hippocampus. And your hippocampus does many things. What it's really doing is as I'm having this conversation, let's say with my dad, this is all happening as my dad said, "Are you still at that job?" Okay,
split second, right?
Right. So now my hippocampus, which is in charge of, again, my memory, what it's doing is it's saying, okay, here's what dad said, here's what I said, here's what happened, here's what was around us. And it wraps that all up and makes it into a memory for us, right? So that we can use it later. The problem is that if you're shrinking and shriveling your hippocampus and all these stress hormones are happening, guess what? The memory is altered. So that's why you remember things differently than what they happened. The other problem is that your hippocampus is also the part of your brain, this memory part that lets you know if something is happening in the present or in the past.
I see. And
that is why you feel so traumatized in a moment and so physically triggered, because your brain is starting to think that this is whatever that threat is happening right now. The tiger's eating me now.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm having this talk with my dad. He wasn't even talking about my job. Maybe he didn't even say it that way. That's just what I heard.
Right.
Maybe he was like, hey, how's the job going?
But that's all, but we interpret it differently.
Exactly.
And that's what
we think it's reality.
Right.
And every person listening has been in this argument with a partner, with a parent, with whoever, where they've said, you didn't say that. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. You did this. You meant that. No, I didn't. I was just asking how your day was. We've all had that. And we think they're gaslighting us. That they're full of it. Now, I'm not saying we're never being gaslit, but a lot of the times we're not. A lot of the times things are just asked or said and have nothing else attached. But we, again, all this stuff is happening in the brain. Also, your prefrontal cortex is affected, which regulates all your emotions and your impulse control. And that is why you end up with poor impulse control at the same time. So again, you get like spotty memory from trauma, this hypervigilance, this emotional reactivity. You can see now, as I explain the brain, right? Why all that's happening. So let's get back to our Fawn response, but hopefully people listening can really understand that this is a very physical thing that's happening. Right. And the longer you've been dealing with an unresolved trauma, the longer you can imagine how that brain system gets super, what we call kind of hot,
Yeah.
where it just takes nothing almost to set it off because it's
Right.
so triggered, right? It's so near the top. So when somebody is, if your response is this people pleasing, is this fawning, it's really where we're sort of like, we're merging with the wishes and needs of others. That's what we're doing. And we're kind of saying that the price of admission into a relationship is that I forfeit my needs, my boundaries, what I consider my rights, because otherwise, why would you do this with me? Like, my job here is to not ask for anything and to just be.
That makes so much sense. I mean, even personally, like with jobs in the past, it's better I just stay quiet. I don't want to upset them because I don't want to feel what you just went through. Even though we're in modern day, there's no tiger chasing us. But when that moment we hear those words and it activates our nervous system, cortisol, and we're just like freaking out, and then it ruins our day. So I think a lot of people listening out there can resonate with that. So that's very interesting how you put it. So this leads me to the next question. So if somebody is going through that and they are starting to build trust issues with someone, how do we like move forward, like being able to trust again, and especially after abuse, something that horrible happened?
And I always tell, trust is earned.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important not to just get into trust again, not to just sort of throw ourselves into that again. And really what we have to do first is trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Trust ourselves that we'll make a boundary, that we'll hold it, that will hold ourselves accountable, that we'll be responsible, because otherwise we're putting all that in the other person. And then we think, oh, see, I got hurt again.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but you stayed there a long time and you allowed this to happen for a long time. This person hurt you and you went right back in. And a lot of times people forgive, quote unquote, but then they go right back to trusting. And it's like, that's not what forgiveness is. You can forgive someone, not trust them. And I have people I've forgiven, I didn't trust. So, it was part of, because I knew not to trust them, but I forgave them. I got who they were. So you really want to, first and foremost, trust is made up of three pieces. And three, I call them kind of pillars. And basically those are that you first of all, you have to think the other person, that there's goodwill, that the person has your best interest at heart. There has to be this level also of integrity, that they, you believe them, that they say, I'll show up at 3:00, and they show up at 3:00, that there's some integrity to what they say to you. And then there's competence. That's the third kind of pillar, that you have to think they're competent. Like, if I'm trusting my partner being a parent, I have to think, wow, they really have good skills as a dad. You know what I mean? And they do what they say, right? That's the integrity. And they have our best wishes at heart. Like, those three things would have to be there. And the problem is, a lot of times people say they trust someone and one of those things isn't there. You have to have all three. You can't have one. You have to have all three to truly
feel it.
Yep. So I generally tell people to look for those things. Like, think to yourself, of this person, where does it fall out? Right? Sometimes people have a lot of integrity, do everything they say they're going to do. They're really competent, but we don't think they care about us. We don't think they have our best interests at heart. So guess what? We don't trust them.
Right.
So that's the part you would work on, right? You just work on that little piece. But so much of this really, it's like my sobriety, getting clean. It's not an overnight process. It's not something you wake up to one day. It is something you have to for me, using that filter has always helped, these three pillars. I'm like, okay, so I can really tell what I have to work on.
Right.
And then if my mom, we came to a lot of peace together before she died, but she was a narcissist, like a true narcissist. And I didn't trust that she was certainly, she said she was going to do something. She did it. She was very confident in the world, very accomplished, but I didn't trust goodwill. It wasn't about me. Right. So I learned to be in relationship with her where I just held that part, like I understood it. Oh, so this is going through that filter for her. And it doesn't mean I have to hate her. It doesn't.
Right.
I just have to hold my boundary. That's where we let
Right.
go a lot of the anger. We get angry at other people a lot for trampling our boundaries. That's
Right.
not their job to hold our boundary. Your job is to hold your boundary.
Right.
So when you
Right.
put that responsibility to someone else, yeah, but they should, they know, they, sorry, you can blame them all day long, but that's getting you nowhere.
Right.
And you've got to, I talk a lot about verb, you can't act VERRB. You can't act like a victim. You can't act entitled. You can't wait for someone to rescue you. It's 2 R's. You can't read anyone's mind. I know they should know, or they can't read yours. Nobody can read anybody's mind. That's actually not a thing. And the B is blame. If you're blaming anyone else, as soon as you have verb, you're in a bad place. This is toxic somehow. And you're the one who has to take responsibility. I'm sorry. I wish it was them. I try to control. I'm a Jewish mother, please. I try to control everyone. Like, I am a control enthusiast. It's my thing. I love control. I want control. And I really work on that every day because I can't have it. And I'm very unhappy when I give control to other people, which is basically what I'm doing when I'm people pleasing or when I'm letting them be in charge of my boundaries. Right.
So let's talk about boundaries then, because this is what keeps coming up with a lot of people that I've come across. Is they'll do great for a while, they'll hold their boundaries with certain people, but with others maybe not so much, because they're afraid, like, hey, I can't do that with my boss or my spouse or someone that's in charge of my livelihood, because there's so much to lose. In that sense, if I came to you and I said, I'm having problems with my boundaries, what kind of things could you tell me just to kind of get into a rhythm where I can hold my boundaries with everyone, not just pick and choose, like, oh, this one's an easy one, it's a friend, they'll understand, versus, someone I'm married to, and if I piss them off, I might get a divorce, or something
Right.
like that.
Well, you might. I mean, I think you have to have faith and love, not faith and fear, right? We have faith and fear all the time. So faith is belief in something I cannot see. So I don't know that my boss is going to fire me. I don't know that my partner is going to leave me, even if they threatened it. It doesn't matter. I don't know it, yet I have faith in it. So why don't I instead have faith that when I draw this boundary, things will get better, that our relationship will improve? And of course it will, by the way, whether or not, whatever that's going to mean, I can't tell you. But if you got this job, you can get another job. If you got this partner, you get another partner. But it's not even about that. It's about really what people do. Let me just back up. The issue with boundaries is that people change them depending on how other people act. Your boundary should stay intact no matter what the other person does. So let's say, and here's a common one. My son has has a curfew. That's a boundary, right? You have to come home at midnight. You have to come home at midnight. And I've set up this boundary because I believe that's important for his age, right? That he should have it, period. End of story. So even if my Max is really wonderful and loving and great, I don't go, oh, all right, why don't you stay out later? It's okay. And here's what happens. People do it, right? Their Max is acting great and doing it. And he's like, come on, can't I just this one time, right? They say, okay. And then they make the boundary 1, right? But usually what happens is then Max goes, oh, and stays out till 1:30 or 1:15. And he comes home and I go, oh, I gave you this and look what you did. Look what you took advantage of me. Yeah. Now you have to be in at 9. Like now right? This is where we go with boundaries. So they're either too thick or too thin. Too thick is when we slam the door, cut people off, say, that's it. I'm done with you. I hear this all the time. I can't deal with my mother. I'm just cutting her off. I'm never going to speak to her again. It's like, whoa. Or it's way over here. Oh, they were so nice. Oh, I do all these things for them and I'm so enmeshed and it's too thin.
Wow.
It doesn't matter how Max acts. I have the same curfew every single day. It does not matter. I don't care if it's his birthday. I mean, as he gets a year older, I might reevaluate the boundary, but not in a moment, not on the fly, not as he's calling from his friend's house. That's not when I reevaluate a boundary.
Wow.
Right. And what do I tell him every time he does it? He's a teenager. He tries. He'll say, oh, come on, just this one. And I'm, and I say, I might look at your curfew in the future, but it's not tonight.
Wow.
We can talk about it tomorrow though. Sure. Do you see the difference? But we do this all the time.
See, that's the thing with empaths. We think if we let this one time slide, and then it's an invitation to be a doormat, and you let one person in 1 inch, that's it.
Well, because energetically, that's what you're putting out, and you start to believe it. My word doesn't mean much. Right. I say things, but I don't really stick to it. What did I just say about what trust is? You don't trust yourself because you won't keep your word. You're not keeping integrity. You don't have your own best interests at heart. You're worried about other people. You don't do what you say you're going to do because you just wash this around, and you're not acting very competent.
Right.
So how are you trusting you? So why would anyone else? Why on earth would anyone else do for you what you do not do?
Right.
That's just not how the world needs to be, is, whatever. I don't know. Yes, it's lovely. Everyone has everyone's best interest at heart. I would hope, but that's really not everybody else's job. Once again, I love you. If you're listening, I love you. Like, you need to love yourself. And that includes really holding these boundaries. And what I will tell you is that there is so much freedom. I can't even tell you the relief I have with having these boundaries. Just the other day, someone asked me for money for a, like at the school, for money for something, like books or whatever it is. And it was so nice to just say, I said, oh, I've actually earmarked all my money for this year already, my donation money, my giving. So, but you know what? If you're still interested in me doing it next year, send me an email in December. And as I'm setting up what I'm going to do next year, send to me. So number one, I've put it on them. If they want to send me something in December, I don't have to remember. I don't have to, and they'll say, well, I'll send you something right now. I'm like, I'm going to forget it now. If you send it in December, I'll have it and I'll take a look.
Right.
And, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, people try to put it on us to do something, or like I'm supposed to, because she kind of came back to me like, well, we really have to get this money this year. They're going to match it this year, something like that. And I said, yeah, I understand. I just already earmarked. Like, I can't help you.
Now I have to ask you this, like, when you respond, and going back to what we talked about way back in the beginning of this episode, where our legs, the blood rushes in, do you get that still, or are you at a point where you're like, I can handle this, or do you know are you able to?
Yeah, I kind of know my pre stuff. So, and actually I really want to talk about what you do about all this. Right. So, but the way I have a practice set in place, this stuff rarely happens to me anymore, but it certainly has, I mean, it's impossible that it's just going to go away. It's just impossible. If I went home tonight, my husband said to me something, I'd immediately, the difference is I would notice it, and I do notice it. And I'm not 100% perfect, because nobody is, but the vast majority of the time I'm able to stop, or very soon after I'm able to stop. And I will say that as you practice this over the time, you help your brain rewire, so that even when you are triggered, it's not as strong and it doesn't last as long. So you really can combat it differently. And that's a really wonderful thing.
And that's what I want everyone that's tuning into this episode to understand, is practice makes perfect, basically. I mean, the more you do it.
Yep. It really is it. And you really, because you want ultimately a healthy mix of the 4 F's. It's not like you're not going to have those responses. It's good to fight sometimes, and to draw my boundaries, and to be assertive. Absolutely. Right. That's a healthy thing. It's when it's the only arrow in your quiver, when it's the only thing you go to every time. I want everyone listening to have a healthy mix. Other times it's good to flee. It is good to know when you should cut your losses and gently pull yourself out of a situation that you're just exacerbating it if you stay there, right? It's really good to know when you freeze, if that's your usual thing, like just no decision is your decision, right? To be so mindful, so acutely aware that you notice how you're feeling in a moment, and that you can act, not react. You can take a moment and go, what am I doing? Even the fawning, it's really wonderful to listen and problem solve. Lean into love, without self-detriment, right? Lean into what you're doing. being fair while you're expressing your needs, saying what you want, that's still that, that's people pleasing in a healthy way. That's freezing in a healthy way. That's fleeing in a healthy way, fighting in a healthy way. You're not going to not do them. I do them all still. It's just a case of how I do them and how healthy they are. But I have sort of like a basic 5 steps to making sure, kind of counteracting this whole thing, which is, and it's really, I always compare it to, if you've ever painted a room, it always seems like so much fun. My husband would be like, let's paint something. I'm like, oh, painting. Oh, let's go paint. I want to paint. Painting is not fun because 80% of painting is the prep to do it well.
Right.
Do it well. You have to like tape everything off. You have to cover all the furniture. You have to cover the floor. You have to edge the windows. It is a friggin' nightmare, right? But then when you actually go to paint, it's 2 minutes and it looks beautiful when it's done.
Right.
Okay. That is your life now. If you want to not have trauma responses anymore, you got to prep to paint that room.
Yeah.
So that's really about, to me, being ready for conversations, which means that if I'm going to my parents every time. So here's a good example. So my mother used to call me here's some easy tricks. One, I had her name different in my phone and it said, breathe and be loving. So when my mom's name would come up in my phone, it said, breathe and be loving. What a great reminder. So I'm not just like, oh, in the moment, right?
Right.
The other thing I did was I never, ever, ever, not once answered the phone when she called. Because I'm not ready yet. Even if I see that breathe and that's all night, but it would also remind me and before that I put don't answer.
Wow.
Take a minute. I did to remind myself because you get automatic with things, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, my mother never once noticed that and sometimes I would literally call her back in a minute because that's all I needed to stop, take a breath, calm my nervous system, right? Just take a moment, and then the next piece, set intention. How do I want this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to be open and loving. I'm going to remember she's doing the best with the tools she has. I'm going to remember that she shows me love the best way she knows how. You know what I mean? And boy, that's a very different conversation I'm going into, isn't it? When I now on my dime, pick up the phone, make the call, and I'm in that
and
state.
you're in control basically.
Exactly. And that takes away so much of the triggering. And then of course, is being curious during the conversation, ask thoughtful questions, be curious, don't assume, listen like you're wrong. Don't just assume, my dad is asking about my job, that one, maybe I would stop for a minute.
Yeah.
He really cares. My dad cares about me. He's afraid. This is the way he grew up.
Yeah.
That this is the only way. And he's watching me. He loves me so much. His own fear is in front. My fear doesn't have to be in front. Right. I can show him that that I'm great and that I'm happy. I can't prove to him that I'll be financially secure. I can't prove to him anything. I'm not even trying to do that, but I could show him that I'm happy and excited now about what I'm doing. And that will go a long way. And then the next piece obviously is being mindful. You have to stay mindful during the conversation. So however you do that, if you, I'm looking around, I always have like 800 little, I have this little, I've got stuff all over my desk. Like right now, there's a candle lit. I have stuff all the time. I carry stuff in my pockets. I have little stones everywhere. This is the one I carried today and I put it out, and I'll carry it around. I do all kinds of things to help myself stay grounded because that's a hard thing, to stay in the moment.
Sure.
And then the biggie there is I call the dominant vibration in the room. So when I'm answering the phone, like I'll hear this a lot. Well, I was in a great mood and then my partner came home in a bad mood. So then I was in a bad mood.
The vibe.
What? If you were in a great mood, why didn't your husband get in a great mood? Why is it a given that anyone who's in a bad mood or negative or toxic, that everyone goes to that?
Yeah.
Why? You know why? Because they're very a dominant vibration. So you be the dominant vibration. Screw that.
Right.
You be the dominant vibration. So sometimes before I had this recently, I had a meeting. I do some corporate work still. And there's a team I'm working with who are very difficult. I say with love and really having a hard time. And I just noticed I was dreading it a little. It's like, oh, I got to go in. And people have had this, right? You're kind of dreading going to that dinner or dreading whatever. And I thought, oh, that's bad. I can't go in with that energy. I got to shift that. So I really sat before the meeting. I really got my energy intact. And when we started, I said, hey, can I say a few words? And they were like, okay. And I said, I noticed I was kind of dreading this meeting. Was anybody else? And a few people kind of laughed and raised their hands, right?
Yeah.
And I said, so here's what I am saying is going to happen today. My intention is that this meeting goes great, that we all walk out of here feeling it was mutually beneficial, that everybody walks out feeling like they got heard and listened to, that we all bring great energy to the space, and we really want to get, this thing we had to get done. I said, and I'd like to hear everyone else's intentions. Who's on board? And you know what? We had a great meeting, and everyone said it was the best meeting they ever had. And it really shifted a lot of the energy of this group.
Right.
I just was the dominant vibration when I walked in the door, and I said it. And then I asked other people to join me. It's not, if you sat around the Thanksgiving table, which is coming up, and here you are with your family, you sit in your car before you walk in there, and you get yourself in a really great state, and you get yourself ready, not expecting that everyone's going to be great. They're not. So you just know you're going to be great. Maybe have an exit plan in place. Maybe have already told them, oh, I can only stay a couple hours. I'm so excited though to come, even though I have things, I made this a priority. So I'm going to stay I can only stay, sorry. See, you're already setting that up negative. I'm going to stay for 2 whole hours. I have 20 things I got to do tonight, other places, my husband's family, whatever, but you guys are the priority. I'm making you first, but we have a hard out at 8:00.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm taking notes here.
Right? I just shifted all that energy. But here you go. When you're all sitting around the table, everyone says what they're grateful for at Thanksgiving here in the United States. Gratitude has negativity in it. When you're saying you're grateful, you're saying like, I'm grateful that we're all together. What you're really saying is, because it sucks being alone, right? I'm grateful for our home. Oh my God. Thank God I'm not homeless. You're kind of bringing in something negative, believe it or not. I always joke gratitude sucks. Instead, it doesn't suck. It's okay. But you get my point.
Right.
Appreciate. Yeah, I'm telling you, you're going to have a completely different Thanksgiving if everyone does this. Go around the table and people have to say what they appreciate right now in this moment.
Okay. And
you wait till you see the connection, the vulnerability, and the vibe. So everyone's going around and saying, I'm so appreciating this in everybody's presence for this moment, all our busy lives, everything that's going on. And here we are. I'm looking at all your beautiful faces. It feels really good right now.
I love that.
So appreciate. I'm smelling right now this delicious food. I waited all day to eat. It's going to taste so good, but it's going to taste even better because I'm going to share. I'm really appreciating the conversations I've been having with everybody today. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm really grateful that we're all together. I'm really grateful. And they're like copying each other. And
right. It's not genuine.
It's not genuine. It's not in the moment. Appreciation is right now in a moment. It's very acute. So it really brings people front and center. How are you feeling right now? Or that's the other one I've done around Thanksgiving. I said, please share how you're feeling right this minute. Not what you're thinking, because that's what people start to do. They'll say, well, I'm feeling like it's really great that we're all together. And I'll gently go, that's a thought, not a feeling. But how do you feel that we're all here together?
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it takes a few rounds, trust me, but I stay very gentle. I stay very loving. I stay very, light. And people get there. Well, it's just beautiful that we're here. Oh, thank you.
That's awesome. Yes, I've learned a lot. I can talk to you all day about this. So, Abby, it's been a pleasure and an honor for you to be on the podcast. But before we take off, could you just tell our audience where we can find you on social media and what you're up to? I know you've got a ton of things coming up. So
I do. Well, really, the easiest way to find me is my website, which is just my name, which you'll have in the show notes, but it's abbymedcalf.com. So ABBYMED as in Donald, CALF, abbymedcalf.com. It has the podcast. We're in 136 countries right now. It has, it's wonderful. We're in our 4th season. It has my Amazon #1 best-selling book, Be Happily Married. Even if your partner won't do a thing. Thank you. It has all my social media handles, all the places to find me. And there's the wonderful on the shop page. I'm really proud. So there's things you can buy, like a forgiveness masterclass in my book, but I also have a lot of free things. Like there's a learned optimism jumpstart workshop. It's like an hour, and I take you through a test, and you can take the test. It's really fun. I have a mindfulness starter kit, a meditation starter kit. I've got lots of things on there that you can you don't have to put in a credit card. There's nothing sleazy I do. It's all just really meant. And I have another book, Negative Thinking Sucks, and Not in a Good Way, that I really want to get out in 2022. And I have some merchandise that's coming up that people are excited about, and all kinds of, my gosh, everything's really exploding in a wonderful way. So yeah, and you can sign up for my weekly inspirational newsletter, which comes out just once a week, and people love that. I'm actually going to be making that into a book because it's been so well received. So yeah, so it's not just like, oh, here's the podcast. It's meant to inspire you every week with a wonderful little piece. So there you go.
Wow, thank you so much. You're full of great knowledge, and you guys go ahead and follow her, and I'll put everything in the show notes. So you're always welcome back in the future. So keep doing.
I'm happy to come back. That's great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed it. We're in the Elite series. Definitely stay tuned for the next episode. We're heading towards 200 episodes, and we have a lot more elite guests coming around the world, the best out of the best. Abby, you're one of them. So I'm honored to have you on this podcast with the greats. So stay tuned for the next episode. And guys, always keep moving forward. And we are out.